All right, strap yourselves in, folks, because today we're going deep on a mystery that'll chill you to the bone.
Yeah.
We're talking about the enigma of the SOS sign on Mount Asahi Dake in Japan.
It's one of those cases that just grabs you and won't let go.
Yeah, it really does sound like something straight out of a horror movie.
It does.
So, Mount Asahi Dake, this is in Hokkaido, right?
That's right, Japan's northernmost island.
Known for its incredible landscapes, right?
Absolutely breathtaking scenery and some really challenging hiking trails.
Yeah, so Mount Asahi Dake, it's a volcanic peak, a popular spot for adventurers.
It is.
But this story takes a dark turn, leaving us with more questions than answers.
More questions than answers, for sure.
It all begins with two hikers who get caught in a fierce storm.
Yeah, classic setup, right?
Yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah.
But they end up being rescued thanks to a massive SOS sign they claim they had nothing to do with.
That's where things start to get really strange.
Right away, it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, red flags everywhere.
So let's talk about this SOS sign. It wasn't just some quickly thrown together message.
No. We're talking 19 birch logs, each one 16 feet long.
16 feet.
Meticulously arranged in a remote wetland area miles off the main trail.
Okay, hold on. So they're miles off course, injured, caught in this crazy storm.
Right.
And somehow they managed to build this massive sign.
It's almost impossible to imagine.
It sounds like the start of a horror movie, you know?
And it gets worse.
What could be worse?
Those logs were enormous.
Yeah, how big are we talking?
Potentially weighing between 1 and 3 tons in total.
1 to 3 tons.
Just try to picture someone, let alone an injured person, hauling and arranging all that timber.
In such a remote and unforgiving environment, too?
Exactly. The logistics of it all are mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's a truly chilling thought.
To be lost, injured, the storm closing in.
And then you see this giant SOS sign, seemingly built by an unseen hand.
It sends chills down your spine just thinking about it.
So the plot thickens, right?
Oh, it definitely thickens.
Search teams discover human remains near the sign.
Yeah, an initial analysis suggested they belonged to a woman.
A woman?
And there were bone fractures indicating a serious injury.
So was it this woman who built the sign, maybe in a final desperate attempt to survive?
That was the initial thought. But then came another twist.
Always a twist.
About 165 feet north of the sign.
Okay.
They found a bunch of personal belongings cameras, a notebook, and an ID.
An ID.
Belonging to a man named Kenji Iwamura.
Kenji Iwamura.
A 24-year-old from a city over 800 miles away.
Okay, now this is where things get really unsettling.
Yeah.
We have a woman's remains, a man's belongings, and this giant SOS sign looming over it all.
It's as if two separate narratives are colliding on this remote, windswept slope.
What in the world happened on that mountain?
The police thought they had their answer. Iwamura must have built the sign.
Seemed logical, right?
His family confirmed he was an anime fan, which matched the content on cassette tapes found among his belongings.
Oh, wow.
So it seemed like a straightforward, if tragic, case of a hiker lost in the wilderness.
But I have a feeling it wasn't that simple, was it?
Not even close. One of those tapes had an SOS message on it, and when Iwamura's family listened, they were adamant that wasn't his voice.
Oh.
That discovery shattered all their assumptions, suggesting a far more complex and disturbing scenario.
So we're not dealing with one potential victim here, but two.
Right.
Two individuals seemingly unaware of each other's presence, connected by this impossible SOS sign. The whole thing sounds like the plot of a psychological horror film.
A very apt comparison. And it gets more unsettling the deeper you dig. Remember the fake Safe Rock landmark?
Yeah, that was a weird one.
It's a known hazard in that area, often mistaken for a safe haven by lost hikers.
Yeah, you think you found shelter and...
It leads you further astray.
So could Iwamura have encountered this fake Safe Rock during the storm?
It's definitely possible. Disorientation, panic, the sheer force of the storm could lead to bad decisions, especially in such a hostile environment.
Absolutely. But even if we factor that in, the question remains, how did he build that sign?
Exactly. The scale of the task, the physical effort involved, all while dealing with injuries, it just stretches the limits of what seems possible.
So are we suggesting it's impossible that Iwamura acted alone? That someone or something else was involved?
Let's look at the possibilities. We know Iwamura was hiking solo before the storm. We know about the fake Safe Rock and the potential for disorientation. But when you add in the severity of the injuries on the remains, the logistical nightmare of building something so massive and the lack of any tools found at the scene, the idea of him acting alone becomes increasingly improbable.
It's like one of those classic horror movies where you keep encountering unexplained events and you're left wondering, Is there a rational explanation or something more sinister at play?
It's that creeping sense of dread, the feeling that something is deeply wrong that makes this case so fascinating. And the truth, whatever it may be, is likely far more disturbing than anything we can imagine.
Yeah, it really does feel like stepping into a nightmare.
You think you're alone out there struggling for survival.
And then you find evidence that something else, something unknown, might be right there with you.
It's a terrifying thought.
It really is. And we have this immense SOS sign.
Yeah.
It should be a symbol of human resilience, but it's shrouded in this darkness, this ambiguity.
It's almost as if the mountain itself is trying to tell us a story, but we're just not getting it.
We're not understanding the language.
And the story it's telling, it seems to defy our understanding of reality.
Yeah.
Two sets of remains.
Right.
A sign that seems impossible for one person to build, and no clear answers on how or when any of this happened.
It's like looking into a distorted mirror.
Yeah.
Where the reflection is both familiar and just wrong.
Grotesquely wrong.
Okay, so let's try to put the pieces of this puzzle together.
Yeah.
We talked about Iwamura possibly running into another hiker.
Right.
But is there any chance he could have built that sign on his own?
Alone.
I mean, people have done incredible things in survival situations, haven't they?
We have to consider every possibility, no matter how far-fetched. Imagine Iwamura driven by that primal instinct to survive, pushing his injured body to its absolute limit. Picture him dragging those logs inch by agonizing inch for days, maybe even weeks.
The willpower alone.
It's almost incomprehensible.
It's a terrifying image, but I can almost see it.
Yeah.
That desperate struggle for survival, the pain and determination, all leading to this monumental SOS sign.
A desperate plea etched into the heart of the wilderness.
But even if we consider that scenario, we still have unanswered questions, like the missing axe.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Did he find it abandoned on the mountain?
Did he bring it with him, despite it being completely impractical for a casual hike?
These little details, they're like cracks in the narrative.
Hinting at something we're missing.
The truth that's eluding us. And what about that voice on the SOS recording?
The unidentified voice.
If it wasn't Iwamura, then who was it?
And why did they leave him?
It's like a ghost in the machine.
A whisper from beyond our understanding.
Was it another hiker who came across Iwamura in his desperate state? Did they try to help only to get lost themselves?
Or could it be something more unsettling? Something that defies explanation?
Okay, now you're starting to creep me out again.
Uh-huh.
But you have to admit, it's this blend of the tangible and the unexplainable that makes this case so captivating.
It really is.
It's like the mountain is holding its breath, guarding its secrets, and daring us to uncover the truth.
And just when you think you've grasped the full scope of the mystery, another detail emerges.
There's always another layer, isn't there?
Always another layer. Remember how the bones were initially identified as belonging to a woman?
Yeah, that was strange. How could they get that wrong?
Well, forensic analysis isn't an exact science, especially with partial or damaged remains. But here's where it gets really unnerving.
Okay, I'm listening.
Later analysis revealed those bones actually belonged to a male.
So they made a mistake.
Yeah.
It happens. But what does that mean for the case?
It throws everything we thought we knew into question. We have Iwamura's ID, his belongings, and now bones that match his gender, all found near this impossible sign. Yet despite all that the police never officially confirmed, the remains were his.
Wait, are you saying they had all this evidence pointing to Iwamura and they still couldn't or wouldn't close the case?
It's almost as if they hit a wall, a point where the evidence stopped making sense. Logic and reason broke down, and they decided to leave the mystery unsolved.
That's incredibly frustrating. So what's the official conclusion then? That some random unidentified man built a massive SOS sign and then died next to Iwamura's belongings, even though no one can confirm he was ever there.
That's the official narrative, or rather the lack of one. It's a conclusion that raises more questions than it answers. A silence that speaks volumes about the strangeness of this whole case.
And maybe that's what's most unsettling of all.
What's that?
This feeling that we're dealing with something that's beyond our understandings, is something that lurks just outside the reach of reason.
It's like staring into the abyss and the abyss is staring back.
We have the evidence, these tangible pieces of the story, but they refuse to fit together.
It's a puzzle with missing pieces, a story with chapters ripped out. And those missing elements are what truly fuel the horror of this mystery. Because in their absence, our imaginations run wild, conjuring up scenarios far more terrifying than any definitive answer could ever be.
We're left with this haunting image, right? Two potential victims, this impossible SOS sign, and a mystery that just defies explanation.
Yeah. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about the world.
It really does. It's a reminder that even now, with all our technology and progress, there are still places where the unknown rules.
Absolutely. Places where the laws of nature seem to bend. Logic breaks down, and we struggle to grasp what's really happening.
It's like one of those campfire stories, the kind that stays with you long after the fire's gone out.
Oh, yeah.
Those tales of strange happenings, unexplained events, and that lingering feeling that something's not right.
Yeah, like something's watching you from the shadows.
The Mount Asahi dake SOS sign. It's a perfect example of that. It taps into our deepest fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of being lost and alone in a vast and unforgiving wilderness. And the fact that it's a true story and unsolved mystery makes it all the more terrifying.
It really does. What really happened out there?
Was it just a series of unfortunate events? A tragic combination of human error and the power of nature? Or was there something more at play, something we can't even begin to comprehend?
It's the question that haunts anyone who hears this story. We can analyze the evidence, speculate on the possibilities, but in the end, we're left with this chilling ambiguity.
A sense that the truth is far stranger and more unsettling than we could ever imagine.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it, to realize that for all our advancements, we're still just scratching the surface of what's out there.
And that sometimes the things we uncover are best left undisturbed, buried beneath the weight of the unknown.
It's a scary thought, for sure.
Well, listeners, there you have it. A deep dive into one of Japan's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. The story of the Mount Asahi dake SOS sign is a tale of survival loss and the enduring power of the unknown. A story that will stay with you long after you've finished listening. A chilling reminder that even in the most familiar landscapes, secrets lurk beneath the surface waiting to be uncovered. But be warned, some secrets are best left buried.